Hello, Year 9, and welcome to your next geography lesson. We're going to be pursuing the economic development topic a little bit more further, the development gap. And today we're going to be looking at a particular model. Well, we'll get into what that means in a minute. For the moment, complete this do now. It'll take 5 minutes, look through those 4 key terms and write from memory what you think the definition is. Answers coming up in a second. Pause the video now. So here are your answers. Economic growth, how much a country's wealth can get bigger. It's about improving the economy. Technology, tools and machinery developed to solve problems. And human welfare is the quality of human life, sometimes known as quality of life. How well your life is faring, that's where the word welfare comes from. And all of those come together to form development. The progress of a country in terms of economic growth, the use of technology, and human welfare. A country that is highly developed will have a wealthy economy. They will have higher technology, and people's lives, therefore, should be of a higher quality. A low developed country, a country that is not very developed, will be relatively poor. They will not have access to high technology to solve problems, and people's lives may be of a lower quality as well. When we talk about those three, that's really what development's all about. And this lesson is going to help to visualize in this model, in a diagram essentially, how this works. So let's get on with it. Title, please. Demographic Transition Model. Please double check the spelling there, underline it, don't forget the date. It is fancy words, but when you break them down, it's actually quite simple. We will be abbreviating that to the DTM throughout this lesson just to speed things up a bit and to limit the writing. So read the objectives, make sure you've got all the equipment, spend a minute writing that title, pause the video now. Okay, so the demographic transition model. Demographic, anything to do with demography, that's the study of people and populations. So demographic really means people. Transition is about changing, transitioning from one thing to another. A caterpillar transitions into a butterfly, it changes. And a model is a simple way of looking at real life. Real life is very complicated and complex, so we use models to help understand it better. So the demographic transition model could be said as the people change concept, the idea of people changing. Well, it's a bit more specific than that. We will move on to that now. So if you could watch this video, that would be fantastic. This video is 6 minutes long and very, very clearly explains the demographic transition model. Watch it at least once, and you can always come back to it later if you need to. The video will do a very, very good job, as I said, of talking through it in a logical way, explaining things as they go. So have a look at that. Pause the video to do that. And when you move to the next slide, we're going to see our version of the demographic transition model. So pause the video now. So here we go. You've just found out all about the demographic transition model, and here's our version. So just to remind you, we have 5 stages of the demographic transition model. From stage 1, where a country and the people in that country really are basically tribal. This is a tribal community. There is very, very little left in the world that is like this. And we move all the way through to 5, which is some of the most advanced countries in the world are in 5. As we move through, the country is getting wealthier, the quality of life for people is getting higher, and the use of technology is getting higher as well. We're looking at the birth and the death rate. They're the 2 key things, although we do have total population as well. And we'll notice that in stage 1, both are very high and fluctuating. Lots and lots of babies are born, but very sadly, lots and lots of those babies die probably very young. Life expectancy is not very high. People do not live long lives. We move to stage 2, and there's been changes in the country. It's developing, and specifically it's developing when it comes to health. So the death rate starts to decrease. The birth rate, however, stays high. People still feel the need to have lots of children. They haven't quite understood yet and been educated that this needs to change, that they should lower the amount of children. They're used to, very sadly and tragically, having lots of children because they know that sadly a large number of those children will not survive into adulthood. But now things are changing for the better. And so the total population starts to rise. We move into stage 3, and now education is happening. Now people are realizing that actually Maybe they want to stay in education for longer. Maybe they want to have children later in life. Maybe they don't need to have as many children. So the birth rate starts to decrease as well. The total population is still increasing, and it is still increasing fairly rapidly, but it starts to slow. We move to stage 4, where the UK is now, and where most high-income countries of the world sit these days. And we've got the fairly low birth and death rate now. This means that the total population starts to stabilize. It starts to slow down its increase. And then in stage 5, which some countries of the world are sort of just starting to see, the birth rate actually, for the first time almost in human history, the birth rate drops below the death rate. So we're seeing a natural population decrease in these countries. And that proves challenging just as much as a high overpopulation may do. The idea of a declining population also causes all sorts of issues. You came across that idea a little bit, kind of touched on some of the ideas when you learnt about China in year 8. Not that their population is declining, but the aging population that they're suffering from and will do in the future, that's certainly something that these countries in stage 5 are looking at trying to mitigate, trying to solve that particular problem. So there we go. There's a demographic transition model. Hopefully that all makes sense. Obviously, if it doesn't, you've got my email address, or email your teacher if you're not in one of my classes, and that will be solved. Okay, so main task to do now. Let's see how much of that you can remember and put together and interpret yourself if you've forgotten it. At the bottom here, you have a series of statements. The first column is birth rate. The second column is death rate. The third column is total population. And the fourth column are some examples of particular countries. Your job is going to match those to the stages. Now, I've put the demographic transition model, or another version of it, at the top of the screen here. You can obviously go back to the video. You can go back to the last slide as well. You can use whatever resources you need to work this out. If you can't print this sheet out, this will be attached. But if you can't print it out, don't worry. All you need to do is write stage 1, underline it as a subtitle, and write the 4 statements below that: the birth rate statement, the death rate statement, the total population, and the country example. Then you move on to stage 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and it should all look nice and neat in your book. You won't have a copy of the demographic transition model, but that's all right. Don't worry about that. It's very easy to get hold of for the future. So there we go. This should take you 10 to 15 minutes. Pause the video now. Fantastic. Good job. Here are the answers. Please double check them if you've made any errors. Sort them out now. They need to be corrected. Otherwise, your notes for revision will be wrong. So go through these, make sure they're all correct, and there we go. Okay, to finish, I'd like to close all your notes, turn to the back of your book, get another piece of paper out, something else, turn the page, and I want you to try and see how much of that you remember. From memory, draw the demographic transition model. Do it in pencil, because at the end, I want you to go back and check yourself, using your notes, using the previous slides, and make any corrections needed. I'll give you a little starting point. There are 5 stages to the demographic transition model. That's the starting point, and then you can start drawing some lines. Remember, there were 3 lines on this model, which is essentially a line graph, isn't it? But there are 3 lines on it. So 5 stages, 3 lines. The key is, can you remember what those lines are and how do they change as you move through each stage? Good luck. I'll leave it to you to go and check that yourself. Please do. If you don't correct it, any errors, any misconceptions now, you will be more likely to stick with you. Have a lovely day. Thank you very much for your time. I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.